And the same amount of imagination and creativity and consciousness that led to the oil boom when it was a boom and led to the development all through the 1900s that you were a part of, that level of incentive and creativity and basically bringing new paradigms into existence, we're not living that way now. We're not practicing that way now because the nature of our culture is in a gridlock held by the corporate interests that control our culture and our paradigm. And it's not a we and them thing, it's all of us. And so I think that's the big part of the issue, and we're stuck in, and we don't have a justice system in this country, we have a retail legal market. And whoever can best fund their side of the aisle is who dominates the situation. And you know, I mean, it's really clearly obvious that the government of the United States is owned by financial interests, and that's just the way it rolls. That's our reality today. So I think, you know, I think it's real easy for us to get in reactions and pick good guys and bad guys here. But the fact of the matter is we're stuck in a paradigm that we're not going to outlive if we don't break the mold of the way we're looking at things.
This is a long way from hydrofracking, but it's been about a year ago I put an article in the Tennessean on thorium. It had been studied during World War II at Oak Ridge. They even had a functioning thorium power plant there. And I get letters or emails and whatnot, but not one person picked up on that. And I've had individuals say, "No, that's a good idea. Why don't we do that?" And maybe we need another paradigm.
Yeah, well, we clearly do. Can you tell us where the predominant concentration of gas and oil, the existing drilling or the existing fracking has happened now in Tennessee? And do you have any idea? I mean, I know for a fact Hickman County is on the map because I got a letter, you know, but they were only offering $10 an acre. You know, and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Hell, a cow will make more money than that.
I don't know, I haven't seen the map, but I do know that up in Cumberland County, there's a lot of natural gas. I know some people actually who have a natural well. It's just there. They didn't have to drill it. The thing's open, and there's a ton of gas under their property. And I've often wondered why. We've even talked about maybe that may be a way to sell that property because then they can access the gas. They don't have to frack. It's right there. It's already an open conduit. So I know there's a few places, but I haven't seen the map.
I wanted to know, how does that water, is there any way to clean any of the drinking water? Have to wait for it to hopefully evaporate? Because doesn't it affect our food sources and what we grow?
When you get formaldehyde and heavy metals and barium, it depends on your pollutants, of course, but if you get heavy metals, formaldehyde, some of the things they were talking about, you got a real serious problem as far as removing it. I'm not entirely sure how you get the metals out. We had one case where we were looking at options for getting high concentrations of aluminum out of stream water, and about the best I could find was some charcoal treatments. You do a lot of it, and it always circles back to, you find some friendly algae, you build up a bacteria colony. Sometimes we've injected what they call biostimulants, so you create these bacteria colonies that will eat the bad stuff. We did that on the Egyptian lacquer case. I don't know, people might have heard about that case. It was the famous cat pee smell on the Harpeth River case. And they said, oh, we can't clean it up, we can't fix it. And myself and another attorney had that case, and we did find a company that had a plan, and they'd never used it in Tennessee before. They'd used it somewhere else, and you know, TDEC was our biggest problem. TDEC is our state version of the APA, and they kept saying, we don't know about this biostimulant, prove that it works. So we had to spend 2 months doing a bench study where we built up the colonies in these jars and watched the bugs eat the chemicals. So you have to get creative, and sometimes it works, but we were lucky in that situation that biostimulant and a high oxygenation of the water would function that way. It did work. But formaldehyde, barium, metals, you're going to get into some complicated stuff. And at the end of the day, that's expensive. And every one of these companies, I have yet to have a case where the company said, oh, we're so sorry. Yeah, you got us. How can we clean this up? Never happens. You have to drag them kicking and screaming into federal court, and you have to sit on their heads until they do something.
Well, and I've also heard of things where, something's introduced to try to control heavy metals in the water, and then that particular plant gets out of control, so they have to reintroduce something else to control that plant, and then that introduces weevils. I mean, you can start a crazy snowball effect when you start introducing things to control something, and you think you're helping, but then that creates a whole other problem that you then have to deal with after the fact.
Right. You can have an entire state covered with cattails that are trying to uptake pollutants.
I don't think there's hardly anybody here that believes that hydrofracking is not dangerous to our state. And I think what we need to think about, what makes me feel better, is to be able to think about solutions. What are we going to do? And it seems like to me, in my limited time of activism, is what's effective is it us going to meetings like I was in Knoxville today. If my health would have allowed me, I would have went to Knoxville today, because I think we have to have quite a few witnesses at these meetings. I'm finding that if we have witnesses at these meetings and talk to them about our concerns, not so much about worrying about what they think of what we think, but the fact that we're not laying down for them, that we are paying attention, and that we are witnessing what they are saying they're doing this for. So then you take notes of what they say they're doing this for and how they're justifying this, and then they make those decisions based on that truth or untruth. Well, then when you go down the line and it's actually going to happen, if they sometimes change what they were doing. This is where I'm getting, but just recently, the Charlotte landfill, it got turned undone because they had told some untruths at another meeting and tried to convince a very limited public that was there that they were doing it for one reason, and in fact, they were doing it for another. Well, then when they got on down the line, the public found out about it, and suddenly the whole room was there, and they got voted down. And I think primarily because there were witnesses at the first meeting where they didn't invite hardly anybody, and they were telling this song and dance, and then when they went to the next stage and thought they were just going to slide it by, but the public did an outcry, and I think that's what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to stand up. We're going to have to witness, find out how big is the problem in Tennessee, what we're going to do about it, and we're going to attend every meeting possible when we can, and then stand up and not be the easy state where we can, nuclear is great, hydrofracking, oh, come on in, we're just easy for everything. And then for the future, I'm like you. We talk about, well, is nuclear better than this, whatever. Whatever happened about putting another blanket on the bed? Whatever happened about turning the thermostat down? What were people doing in 1800? What does Jeff Poppin do? Down at his place, I've been down there quite a few times. And, do we have central heating there? Heck no. Sometimes for fun, we go to the cave and just sit and talk, What happened to those times? And I think that's what we need to do, is break down that, as he called it, I think, the paradigm, and go, and I think we all know this. We just need to get back, break out of that corporate mentality, or either this or that, and just go back to a simpler time and try to just stop the leaking, stop damage we've already done.
If this next legislative session, people care about this issue, I would personally recommend getting in a group, targeting 2 or 3, preferably Republican legislators, and there are a lot of good ones who are thoughtful. There are a lot of farmers. They have the same interests you do, and try to get some traction on a fracking bill where all the chemicals used have to be disclosed in the state. It at least gives you a start, because if you don't know what the chemicals are that are used in the fracking, when your water's poisoned and we go to sample it, we can't figure out if there's a way to trace it back to the fracking activity.